Commentary is one of the most important aspects of the professional wrestling industry, but sadly it's also one of the most under-recognized, which is a real shame because sometimes bad commentary can lead to missed opportunities that we'll never be able to get back again. On the other hand, good commentary can sometimes save a less than perfect show, and it can take an already good one and turn it into pure greatness. And I think it's pretty important for us wrestling fans to know the difference. Fortunately, a friend of mine has stopped by to go over just that, because today, Dave and Stephen James know the 7 keys to good commentary. Alright, so joining me for this episode is a very good friend of mine. You might recognize him as the voice of Capital Wrestling, Mr. Stephen James. Stephen, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for finally having me. I've only been waiting for
forever.
It's been a while.
Alright, so today we're going to be talking about the keys to doing good commentary. So first and foremost, what would you say is the most important thing to know about commentary?
The most important thing is knowing when not to speak. Silence sells. Sometimes you have to let the action speak for itself. Let it breathe. Let the importance of what just happened go through the mind of you, the audience at home. Let you tell the story. Sometimes you just gotta let it breathe.
Talking about commentary outside of wrestling, there are a lot of directors, movie directors, who don't do DVD commentaries back when, that was a thing, because they feel like, why should they put their thoughts out? You took from the movie what you took from it, and so why interject what they wanted? I think a great example of bringing it back to wrestling of what you talked about was, unfortunately, that thing that never happened at WrestleMania 30 with The Undertaker.
What thing?
Yeah, that thing that never happened, but silence is golden. No sound.
Let the shock sell it on its own. Everyone was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
To say it out loud would be almost redundant. It would almost take away from the moment. So knowing when not to speak is ultimately number one. For me, if we go back to recent Capital Wrestling, the bull rope match, taking a second when Ronnie Burton was being hung by the rope. That is an image that you don't really need to sell as hard for as long as humanly possible. Let the image itself sell with wrestling and moves. If you do too many things in succession and not let it breathe and not let it sell, you're overloading the audience's brain. You gotta let it breathe a little.
Right, there's only so many times you could scream, "This is devastating," before it's like, well, great, everything's devastating, I don't care anymore. Yeah.
It's like a Dolph Ziggler sell. Knowledge of the product and who your audience is. For me, there's different styles of commentary depending on what your audience is. If you're an ROH fan or, say AEW, for example, they're more concerned with calling the moves what they are, what they accurately are, like calling it a tope or calling a powerbomb a powerbomb. Now with WWE, especially, they're trying to brand the move according to their stars. So you have the brand recognition. So a last ride, it is a powerbomb, but it's a last ride when The Undertaker does it. So you're calling things differently. Knowing what identity your product has is very, very important. Who are you appealing to?
Now this raises a question, because there are definitely going to be people who will get upset.
It's different schools of thought.
Right. How do you feel about the branding of championship and never saying belt, or saying WWE Universe and never saying the crowd?
Again, it depends on who you're appealing to. It's different universes for each thing.
And that's something else that has been a thing that come up in commentary for the past, I think, a couple of decades now, whether or not you should call moves, because there is a school of thought that some people feel like if you use a lot of fancy terms, you confuse or you alienate casual fans. And casual fans is what the business needs. It thrives off of casual fans.
For sure. When it's at its apex is when everyone feels wrestling is for everyone.
But I think there's also room for the argument where people say that it's how we learn what wrestling moves are, and it's educating the public. So it's how you bring everybody onto the same playing field. So there's that debate.
It depends. It goes right to it.
Right.
Knowledge of your audience. Whatever the mission of the company is, you have the outline of what you want the audience to believe it to be. My job is to make you believe. My job is to tell you that story in a way that comes across authentic as what's going on in the ring. I am wrestling Rosetta Stone. So the language of the body that is going on in the ring, I am translating it into words as best I can for people who don't perform these things. Having chemistry with your partner. I wouldn't know what this is about because I'm saddled with an albatross, Mr. Entertainment, Harry Tujani, and Harry, if you're watching, I love you, baby.
You're number one.
Yeah, it's a different finger for that one. Harry is a great partner to have. If look at all the great commentary teams that you have. With the exception of Joey Styles and his run in ECW, there's very rarely ever been just one guy calling it to great success. It's not how it's designed to go. Are you the babyface? Is he the heel? Are you a traditional babyface and heel? Is he the cool guy? Like, how is it being presented? And the only way to do that is to have chemistry with each other. And it doesn't happen overnight. The first few Capital Wrestling shows, I can speak from experience, and the first few shows, even in other companies like 2KW Pro, they had to go, you gotta work on your chemistry a little bit with the two of us. And being close friends with Harry now is definitely helped.
I also think there's a lot to be said about contrast, and that's why I think two-man teams work really well together.
It's the pocket.
And I also think we need to have contrasting voices that are very easily identifiable. I think one downside that we have in a lot of wrestling now is that everyone kind of sounds the same. They all have that broadcasting sounding, voice.
They put on the faux.
Yeah.
It's almost like Vince's actual, like if you look at Vince McMahon's actual voice and Vince McMahon's broadcasting voice, it's very different.
Right.
And very over the top when he was an announcer. It seems like it's not as over the top, but you can tell the difference. They're not talking naturally.
Right.
There's a way to be excited naturally.
Even though contrasting seems like it doesn't work together, it does gel, because having contrasting ideas gives people more substance. It gives more layers to things, because now we're not just getting fed one idea, we're getting fed
multiple ones.
Right.
And you don't have to land on the side of the fence as like the contrast that you're talking about. That's why in most cases, in any commentary team, generally you have your broadcaster be your play-by-play guy, and you have your former athlete or current athlete be your color commentator. So you have those different perspectives as a guy who is calling the action, who is the voice of the fans, and then you have the guy who's the voice of the actual athlete performing. Putting it in layman's terms, is the play-by-plays guy.
How do you feel about three-man teams or three-person teams? Is it possible to have chemistry with three commentators?
It's possible, but it's highly unlikely. There's no silence there because the third person is trying to get his reps in, trying to say something. So normally where that silence would be, where you would let the action breathe, that third person, oh, it's time to get my stuff in. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I haven't seen it work to a point where I prefer it to a two-man team. I think the two-man team is absolutely perfect. Calling through the spot, the emphasis on the impact, selling each and every fall. So if you're talking, you're discussing something, the guy is lifting him up, your normal voice is there, and you call through. When the impact happens, you're also impacting with your voice, with it. And that's something that I was guilty of, especially early on in my career, is not calling that, because you don't realize at first how important that really is. That's not something that you would naturally do. You don't emphasize things as that I'm putting my glass down on the table. You don't do that. But in professional wrestling, it's just the way to go. And selling each fall as if it could be the last raises the tension, heightens it. After a while, you realize that a clothesline isn't going to do it.
Right.
Let's not get crazy. You're not selling every fall as if it's the last one, but important ones that you could build throughout your match, saying, okay, this could definitely be it. And if you have a guy who you've built through your commentary, through story, where he has multiple things that could end the match or finish the match, but the importance of the impact can be sold just with your voice. 1, 2, oh my God, 3, no, he just missed it.
Yeah, a lot of things for me about commentary is it's almost subconscious, where we're just so used to it that we don't realize how much it affects us. And when it comes to inflection, that's one of those things that people just don't think about. But inflection is a huge part of the business, so I totally agree with you on that. We know about inflections and how using your voice in a certain way really does put the hit on things.
The point of commentary is to educate and to make everything seem important, to draw you into a world, to have you suspend your disbelief for as long as you possibly can while you're joining us.
I am one of those guys who definitely gives Michael Cole a lot of flack. He's not my favorite commentator by any stretch of the imagination, but he is really good at emphasizing, putting that inflection through.
Calling through his spots.
Yeah, he's really good at doing that. He does do it very well, I will admit. As much as I don't like giving him credit, there's so many examples of RKO out of nowhere. It's like, you've heard him do that.
Yeah.
It's almost like a sound effect causing.
Exactly. It's like you're pressing it on a board, like a soundboard.
I really want to talk about just emotion in general, because that is something that I feel that different schools of thought, different eras almost have different levels of it, because Jim Ross really wasn't a move caller. He's
No.
not going to name everything authentically, but he sold everything with because how emotional he got into it.
For sure.
And there's some people who look at it the other way around. You'd rather have like a more old school fashion kind of way where
Analytical,
Yeah.
more calling it like a traditional play-by-play sports person.
Right, so where do you feel on that?
It's all about what your personal identity is, to be honest. JR is that human. He is that person. It's just like in the wrestling business when a guy like Steve Austin says, I am this guy just turned up to 10. You have to find who you are and turn that up. For me, I'm somewhere in between. I find myself at times being more analytical, more stoic, for lack of a better term. And then there's things that just happen naturally, where the emotion gets you, and you call. When Sonny Kiss won his first Capital Wrestling Championship,
yeah.
I lost my mind. I'm standing up at the desk. I'm letting that moment mean something, not only to me, which it did, but having other people feel that moment through me. Dress for success. Dress the part, whatever that part may be. I tend to wear more outlandish outfits, blazers, things of that nature. Dress for what you want. If you're in a hardcore promotion or something that is more blue collar, you don't have to wear a suit. You don't have to wear all that. But if you're in a professional environment and you're trying to present yourself as the authority figure on commentary, dress for success. Those desks on cams are important.
And great example, Corey Graves.
Yeah.
He is fitting that character of what he's trying to be. The ridiculous Halloween pumpkin suit or whatever he's going for. He is going for that look, and it fits.
The audience is hearing your voice for 90% of the time. This is your chance to be seen. You are a character in the show.
Jim Ross, cowboy hat, and then
Yep.
Jerry Lawler, King and
Brandon.
the Cowboy. And also a small detail we kind of don't think about a lot is WrestleMania. They're wearing tuxedos. They're going to be dressed out to the nines. You know they're going to do
And
that.
that's from the commentators all the way down to the wrestlers. They put on their A game, their A outfit, to signify that this is not just a regular show. It's the subtle things like that. So when you dress for success, you let your audience know who you are visually. You want to dress for success. Historical research, whether it be historical research of the wrestling business as a whole, knowing throughout the years where trends or things or major significance has taken place. Okay, our current champion won his championship here. It has been defended here this many times. Preparation, knowing your historical facts are very important. Now, you don't want to inundate people with so many facts, but being able to pepper those things in throughout the match. Point of commentary is to get people over. This is the overarching thing, is to get everyone over. And with historical research, it makes that a lot easier.
The whole point of commentary, getting someone or something over, I think we cannot stress enough. Because there have been some commentators like, we've talked about this before, like Jesse Ventura. Great commentator, not taken away from him, but I think he did more to put himself over than talent, necessarily all the time.
It's not about you. There's room for you to have a personality, but it is not about you. It is about the people in the ring. It is about getting them over. If there's a guy you don't like or you don't care for professionally, you still have to call him like $1 million. And that is a hard thing to do if you're disinterested, and that comes off for some people, so you have to find a way to balance that. Get 'em over.
And it's a fine line, because Bobby the Brain Heenan, like my favorite color commentators of all time. Sorry, Harry, but my favorite color commentator.
Mine too. Sorry, Harry.
Or not sorry.
Not sorry.
So my favorite color commentator of all time, Bobby the Brain Heenan. Was he funny? Yes. Did he get himself over to a degree, or did you like him? Absolutely. But he always made sure to get his people over. He always put over talent. Hulk Hogan was put over a lot by Bobby Heenan.
For sure, yeah.
He was the color commentator. I don't think it's a role-specific job.
No.
It's commentary, period, needs to get you over.
For sure. And whatever that means, however you need to get that person over, you have to find a way to add to that.
Oh, absolutely. And I think especially nowadays with the internet being what it is and fans being the way we are now, we almost celebrate our fandom by how much we know.
It's like a wink and a nod.
Yeah.
You're thinking about something at home, watching it, and then the commentator says, it's like, oh my God, yeah, exactly. That's why this is important.
When you're utilizing it for the fans as a little reward for you doing your knowledge or remembering certain things or being here with us the whole time, here's your reward. We will acknowledge that thing you remember. That
Little Easter eggs. Case in point, we've seen in recent WWE history, Triple H, Randy Orton. It sells the feud. It lets lets you know that this is important for this reason. These guys have been going at it since 1874. Like, if the US went to war with Britain, I would put together a killer highlight package going back from the Revolution. Come on.
Perfect example for me would be when Seth Rollins and Brock, when Seth was talking about how Brock has struggled with more athletic opponents, but then Heyman was talking about how, no, that's just because he wasn't prepared for it. I almost wish that was a job done by commentary instead of Seth and Heyman.
I disagree,
Yeah?
and here's why. There's certain things that you should never do. It's a hard balance. You should never make your opponent look weak.
Yes.
Factually.
Yes.
And that kind of makes Brock look weak factually. You want to leave seeds of doubt. You don't want to spell it out like that.
But I think the promo, you shouldn't make the guy you're going against look like that. And also, my other issue with it is, if you discovered this secret formula to possibly defeating Brock, why would you tell him?
Why would you tell someone?
Yeah, why would you tell him?
someone?
It would make more sense that commentary points it out.
Is you don't want to foreshadow it too much. If you do that, you have to be very subtle about it, and unfortunately, a lot of programs are about as subtle as a hammer to the head. They'll just straight out say it as opposed to pepper it throughout the show or throughout the weeks, because even a line like that you're talking about should be used on commentary, that is a long sell too.
Yes, yes.
That is a long sell too. You dribble it out this week, next week, and then by the time the go-home show, it's like, oh wow, you know, this person didn't. Maybe you bring up each matchup that he had, and by the time you get to that go-home show, then the aha moment happens.
Well,
you train your audience.
I would have loved it if they saved that for the Mania match itself, where they start pointing out things that Seth are doing. They're like, well, Brock has actually struggled against this when Daniel Bryan did to him, or Finn Balor did it to him, and now Seth is doing it too. Seth is the kind of guy to be doing that kind of research. He is the guy who's noticing this, and I think we're seeing his strategy. Recalling strategy is something I don't think commentary in WWE does enough nowadays. It's something I really like. What the strategy, what the plan of attack is, and justifying all the things we're seeing. Yeah, in terms of history, I think Gordon Solie, we have to talk about him. Not only is he a piece of wrestling history, but great founder of wrestling knowledge. So Gordon Solie, I think, is one of the top guys.
100%, he's a guy who bought in and was believable. You believed that he believed what was happening was the God's honest truth. Like you said, historical index, he could pull something out. He'll pull out a Hackenschmidt reference.
Right.
It doesn't matter. Ultimately, what he does is he brings it all and presents it into a package that was entertaining and informative. I think he's the perfect balance of that over-emotional and the stoic. Don't overproduce. All of these things are important, but don't overproduce. There's a way to do that. If you're going over each minute detail of the match, if you're thinking, I need to know the finish of this match, knowing the finish, and a lot of guys will agree with me, is bad. Because you lose the element of shock, the element of surprise. Generally, one guy knows what the finish is. I never want to know what the finish to the match is. I never do, because I'm the guy who has to make it exciting. I am you at home. I am articulating you. I am your voice.
You just happen to have the best seat in the house.
I just happen to have the best seat in the house. Overproducing, having someone in your ear, feeding you line over line over line, it's not good. At least not for me. That's not how I do business. I have my points that I want to hit based on my historical research, based on my feud history, based on what these two athletes can do. And from there, I'm trusted enough to get over what I need to get over. Now, there may be some things that you need production-wise to know, like, okay, if it's a live production, okay, after this, we're going to a desk on cam, toss to break. Okay, gotcha. That's all I need to know. But during the match, I don't want to be fed lines. That's my job.
Right.
That's my job.
If they're hiring you to talk, let you talk.
Let you talk.
Right.
And I know that's not how a lot of companies do things, and some people can excel at that, but in my opinion, don't overproduce, because it sounds rehearsed, and you never want to sound rehearsed. You always want to sound at the moment.
And I do understand that it wouldn't be the end of the world to have someone on an earpiece just in case something changes.
For sure.
Like, in case something happens, someone got hurt backstage, they're not coming on, you don't want to say, oh, our next match, and then you're wrong, and then you look foolish.
Been there.
Yeah.
Done that. Wrote that country song.
I get that there's a point for that. But I agree with you. I don't like people yelling at you, because it's hard enough blocking out all the voices in your head, let alone, you know, another
Yeah,
one.
for sure, because you're
your
calling
boss.
the action, you're trying to ingrain yourself with what your partner is saying in your ear. Then you have someone backstage producing who's not in that flow state so to speak. They're watching it from a bird's eye picture, above our bird's eye picture of what's going on in the ring. So they're seeing things that are nitpicking and sometimes and can kind of take you out of that, I'm in an athletic contest right now that I'm calling. I'm in this feud. I'm in this moment. They're seeing the overall television production, which it is important, don't get me wrong. But a good producer will find a way to not be invasive.
Okay, how about this though? Here's this another big debate among wrestling fans and wrestling commentary fans. Ringside commentary versus not looking at the ring whatsoever because they're only supposed to be seeing what's on the monitors and what the audience is saying at home. What do you prefer? What do you think is right?
Calling to the monitor is what's more important, not ringside. Ringside, sure, that's great, and I've done both, but calling to the monitor is more important. I currently call to the ring because that's, what we're able to do right now. But there are inherent problems that come with that. Because as you have a director, as you have someone who edits, you don't know what shots they're going to pick. So if I'm calling, if it's a schmaz going on,
right,
and you got 2 guys on one side of the ring, 3 guys on the outside, and all of these spots are going on at the same time, you have to triage which one to call. And you don't necessarily know if the camera guy got the right shot that your editor is going to go with. So you could be calling something that's not happening.
I think one of the best examples of that is like a run-in. You don't know when the run-in has been seen on camera. Yes. So the last thing you ever want to do is ruin it saying, oh, I can't believe you just hit the ring. And meanwhile, the audience at home hasn't seen it yet because you just ruined it. I mean, you ruined it for maybe 2 seconds, but you still ruined it.
You ruined the surprise. You kind of undercut it.
And I think that's overall for wrestling. A lot of people don't realize that it's a very intricate ballet of everything having to happen at the right exact time. People at different parts and different locations of the entire arena all coordinating together. And that's really what it comes down to. And commentary really is the voice behind all that.
You're not gonna get it right every time. Trust me. If you're able to bat 75% in a show, you've had a great night. It's just it's strap in. The only thing I would suggest if you guys are looking to get into commentary is practice. Reps, reps, reps. I myself, who does this for, I can't say a living, but I do it professionally. I'll say professionally. I even turn the sound down on other matches and watch it and call those matches myself just to stay fresh. I do it at least 2 times a week. I'll call some other matches at a minimum just to get those reps in, because you never know when your next show is going to be. If you're producing television, you're shooting 9 or 10 weeks in one night. Practice. If you want to do this, it is a serious business. Pay your dues. Just do a good job. Just find your niche. Find who you are.
All right, Steve, thanks for coming on.
Can you validate my parking?
No. Thank you for being here. Hey, like, share, subscribe, and as always, Dave knows.